pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember DeVore.
Here.
Councilmember Hedges.
Here.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember Thielander.
Here.
And Mayor Alcock.
Here. Go on to the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion that we pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Alcock.
Yes.
Councilmember DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Hedges.
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips.
Yes.
Councilmember Thielander.
Yes.
Citizens discussion for items not on the agenda.
Hello, my name is Heidi Ogle. I live at 5625 Dunn, UNN Avenue Northeast, Lowell, Michigan, and it also is in the township of Grattan. The reason for me speaking this evening is to ask you, to verify who the building official is for Lowell.
Brian Wilson. It's Brian Wilson from Cascade Township. We contract with Cascade Township.
Okay, so my question to you would be, has Brian Wilson brought it to your attention that he received a letter from Carrie Sawyer, who is an attorney, stating that he in fact, well, I'll just read it for you. First of all, are you aware of this letter?
No.
I'm not.
No one's aware. So your official has not told you anything about this. Okay, let me enlighten you. Dear Mr. Wilson, please be advised that the undersigned and SawyerLawOffices.com PC represents John Ogle and Ogle Heating and Cooling. It has come to Mr. Ogle's attention that his mechanical contractor's license has been used by unauthorized individuals and or entities without his knowledge or authority. These unauthorized mechanical permit application in Cascade Township are listed as follows. PM 145009895, PM 139000794, PM 151022233, PM 1410192, PM 1760193, PM 15145000145, PM 152000529, PM 140000581, PM 145019444, PM 1521341. The reason I read those numbers was that you could grasp how many of these have been done by your building official. Mr. Ogle has consulted with a representative at the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, which is known as LARA, who has advised that his correspondence should be sent to your attention. More specifically, we are requesting that the above listed applications be revoked and further that the permits be closed out. Mr. Ogle and Ogle Heating and Cooling disavow and reject any responsibility and or liability for the above referenced permits/jobs. We are requesting that you confirm in writing that they have been closed out. This has not yet been done. This letter was sent May 17th of this year. By copy of this correspondence to the Bureau of Construction Codes and the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, we are further notifying them of this problem. Thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. The word there is anticipated. This was CC'd to Mr. John Ogle, Mr. Greg Canfield, and the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. So, my question is, what exactly is Brian Wilson, like what are his qualifications? If this happened in the last 2 years, which is against the law, why aren't you aware of the situation? It seems to me like if he was your building official, you should all be aware of this information. Do you have any questions at this time? And I want you to know, I brought each and every one with me through the Freedom of Information Act, thank God, so that any citizen in Lowell can pull this information and see for themselves. Second thing I would like to bring to your attention, which I feel is incredibly important, especially tonight, is the letter that Mr. Canfield received, also from Carrie Sawyer. Dear Mr. Canfield, it has been brought to our attention by various sources that your plumbing and heating company, namely Canfield Plumbing Heating Incorporated, has listed and used the Michigan Mechanical Contractor's License numbered to John Ogle Heating and Cooling for the purposes of obtaining permits for jobs that you and your company have undertaken. As you are aware, you do not have John Ogle's permission to use his license, nor has he authorized, supervised, or undertaken any work or associated with you or your company, which would allow you to use his mechanical contractor's license to obtain permits or undertake jobs of any type. We have submitted a request that the permits that you have obtained under Mr. Ogle's license without his authority or permission or involvement be revoked. Further, this correspondence is requesting that you cease and desist from any further unauthorized use of Ogle Heating and Cooling mechanical contractor's license in any manner. This does relate to Lowell.
Ma'am, we have a limit of 5 minutes.
All right, well then I'll hurry up because I really think that this issue is bigger than 5 minutes. We will, so they're going to send it to the mechanical contracting license. We would be holding you and your company legally responsible for any problems, damages associated with your wrongful use of the mechanical contractor's license and the licensing number of Ogle Heating and Cooling. If you have any questions or problems with the above, please feel free to contact and the undersigned at your convenience. If we discover any further unauthorized use or misappropriation of the Ogle Heating and Cooling contractor's license, we will not hesitate to initiate legal action to protect his interests. Thank you for your consideration. A copy of this was sent to Mr. Brian Wilson, Mr. John Ogle, and the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. I have 3 permits for Lowell, all using Ogle Heating and Cooling license number. One of these permits was signed by Mr. Canfield.
The application or the permits? For 5 minutes.
I have copies. You are welcome to see them. It is the application and it is the permit. Now, the last points that I have, and I will make them very clearly for you. City Charter 4.6b. If the officer shall be found guilty by a competent tribunal, which is you, of an act consulting misconduct in office or violation of this charter, that means that you can stop him from being elected and you can also remove him from any board that he currently stands on.
Ma'am.
He has used the numbers of John Ogle, Tony Dorsey of Atlanta, Georgia, and Doug Shelby of Fenton, Michigan. You may know him as Mr. Burns. Montcalm County. He will no longer be pulling mechanical permits from us. I will contact him and tell him he is in violation of the state construction code. I do not need to hear from each and every one of your contractors. He has pulled 3 permits from this office in 11 years, and he will no longer be able to pull any more permits from us. I consider this matter closed unless he attempts to obtain another mechanical permit from us, and I will take legal action against him. The Kent County Sheriff's Department finished an extensive investigation serving warrants to 14 different agencies, cities, townships, demanding all of Greg Canfield's permits going back 7 years. It was received by Kent County on the 28th and 29th of October. The Sheriff Department met with a prosecutor on the 11th. The meeting was with Chris Becker. I talked to Chris Becker last week. Chris Becker stated that the permits that were used have 3 different signatures on them for David Hill. So now they're going to go after a veteran.
Okay.
I have one last thing to say, please. If you have any questions.
Excuse me, your time is up, ma'am. Be seated.
All right, well, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope this information helps to open some eyes on what's really been going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make it short. This goes back to the same stuff with Sean Bowen, and when I pull permits, I have to list 6 or 7 different numbers. I listed numbers and I made some clerical mistakes.
That is hearsay
All right,
and
he
it's
didn't-
slander.
Okay, he didn't interrupt you.
None of the permits were issued to John Ogle. Cascade Township recognized that I made a mistake and they corrected it, issued the permits to Canfield Plumbing and Heating, and David Hill, who I had authorization to sign his name on permits. My
For 90 days
He
after
didn't
he
interrupt you,
left.
you had your time.
He only can use his license for 90 days after
You
he's
had your
deployed.
time.
Please make a note of that.
Thank you.
I think I have 5 minutes coming up. My name is John Ogle, and I worked with Canfield some 14 years ago. In February, it was brought to my attention that my license was used. I FOIA'd information from not just the city of Lowell, but the surrounding, the greater Grand Rapids area. In doing so, I found lots of errors, lots of bad permits,
Which is illegal.
be it a misprint on a number or not. There's a lot more going on than what just concerns the city of Lowell. My question is where does the liability lie when my license number that I spent 3 years in apprenticeship for is on somebody else's legal documents? Can I use any of your driver's license for some of my legal documents? They're public records. The city of Cascade, who does your inspections, is telling me they can't modify them, they can't destroy them, they can't do anything. In order for me to find out how many there are, and I think we found roughly 100 between myself and a few other contractors in just 2 years in Cascade. 100 in 2 years. I believe this has been going on 14 years. I have to pay, take my time out of the day, cost me money. I also have to pay to FOIA this information from Cascade. So is that something the city of Lowell, you know, if something bad happens in 10 years, 15 years, and my license number's on there, are you gonna pay to prove I wasn't involved in this? Is Cascade? Where does the liability lie when my license number, now nobody seems to think it's a big deal. I've had it sit down with Brian Wilson, and I think it's the manager at Cascade, and they're telling me it's no big deal, but most of the lawyers I talk to think otherwise. My license has never been in Canfield Plumbing Heating's name. I've never given him permission to use it. And that included when I worked there as an employee. Now, I have seen a letter that you've all received stating that I'm a disgruntled employee. I didn't bring this out. I didn't do this to myself. This man has done this to me. He's put my license in jeopardy, my livelihood, and I would think maybe some people's lives, if you do the math, right? You know, you have to have a licensed contractor on site doing work. Who's the lawyer here?
I'm not.
Right there.
Can you rent your license out to somebody that works in Hawaii?
It's a yes or no
Yeah.
question.
All right.
You don't have to have. You
No.
know.
You understand my point?
Yeah.
I wish that the city of Lowell or somebody would do something about it. But this is what I get pretty much everywhere I go, is kind of silence. You know, when you do screw up on a permit, they normally go after you, you know, the inspections office. They want to know, they want it corrected.
Old business.
In your packet, I did write a memo updating as to where we were at with the biodigester. There have been some modifications to that as of today. I can tell you that on November 1st, odors were noticed surrounding the site the day of the deadline. They had till after November 1st. After November 1st, had they been in violation, they would have, if November 2nd came about and there were still odors, then would have been in non-compliance. On November 1st, a citation was issued that evening for an odor, and it appeared at the time that they were completing their final test for the odor mitigation system to go online. As a result, a citation was issued. Over the weekend, there had been some comments on the city Facebook page about odor coming from the biodigester. The police department received 3 phone calls over the weekend, and when they responded to the area, they could not detect odor. However, on one instance, an officer observed a slight odor, but no action was taken. At 9 a.m. this morning, Steve Dockersloot and I walked the perimeter of the biodigester. We walked along Chatham, north on Amity, through the parking lots of St. Mary's Church and Bushnell Elementary. We did not detect an odor at that time, and we walked that area for approximately 40 minutes. At 10:45 this morning, a building official from Cascade Township came to my office and informed me that he completed the inspection of the wooden structure. He told me that while the structure was in compliance by building code, there was a strong odor emanating from the biodigester along the north side of the structure. Steve Dockersloot and I went back to the biodigester where we were able to detect the odor inside the fence line. I had Chief Bucala check the area north of the biodigester where he could detect a strong odor. Outside the confines of the fenced area of Lowell Light and Power, a citation was issued to lead for the nuisance, and the city attorney was notified. I did ask Greg Northrop to attend the meeting tonight. I do not see him here. And I forwarded this matter to the city attorney. In addition, I believe there was also another item pertaining to a bill for $1,500 from Weston Solutions that I believe wanted to discuss as well. That's where we stand.
The Weston bill came up at our last meeting.
Yep.
And was tabled to this meeting, and that there was felt on my part that its authorization for having Weston do the work was probably not followed in the proper procedures, and therefore I kind of wanted to hold back on paying the bill. And then I did some investigation. I did talk to Steve Dockersloot. Steve did agree that Light and Power would be paying half of that bill, $750. And it's my understanding that through clerical mishaps and or procedures that the bill has already been paid. But I think again this is probably just a a mistake, and I think that that will be resolved in the future as far as making sure that the council approves bills before they actually hit the mail. But that being said, I was concerned about procedure and how this bill was created, how Weston Solutions came into the picture, and usually contracts with companies and so forth come through council and or staff authorizes these kinds of things. I kind of thought the staff should be involved. I understand that Dave Pasquale, our city manager, was in his lame duck period, having finished the council meeting on August 15th, and this testing by Weston was done on August 22nd, 23rd. And so Dave was kind of a little bit out of the picture, starting to enjoy his retirement. But that's where we're at, and I just wanted to see where we were at with that.
I guess I'll apologize for reading the charter wrong, but in my eyes, because no one else was doing anything, David been here with the odor, with the gas leak. Greg Northrup admitted that there was a gas leak, and who knows what else leaked because no one tested anything. School was getting ready to start. There was people that were concerned about that, and I may have overstepped myself, but I think that when you have a potential bomb sitting next to a school and a church, and no one else is doing anything, someone has to. So I did. And you have to admit that there would probably still be stench here if we wouldn't have pushed them. And we had to push them pretty hard. And I was one of the ones that instigated a lot of the pushing. So we do have it sort of cleaned up, but they are in violation. So it's another subject that we'll talk about right after we get done with this. So
I would say that I understand perhaps your knee-jerk reaction to the odor. The odor has been happening for quite a while, and we did have a couple of other companies that Light and Power, as well as the city, had do some investigative work previously back in September of 15. Air was tested for primarily for the employees that work inside the building to make sure that they were safe and that the odors and they were breathing these same odors were sufficient and or not a problem for them. My OSHA was involved, and I would have thought that maybe they would have been contacted because that way you'd have the same standard to refer back to see if there had been any increase or decrease or where it stood to where the tests were done the previous September and November. But I think that probably it could have been handled much better. And while we did know that the odor was there, and maybe there was a concern about that, we could go the other direction and say that
it was. Oh, I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
That, we could say that carbon monoxide does not have any odor, yet it is lethal. And so, as laymen as we are, it's hard to make those kinds of decisions on our own. That we would go to the qualified people, be it the Kent County Health Department, be it my OSHA, who had previously done the tests and studies, as well as another company, and it slips my, let's see, Advanced, there's another company that was contracted also that did some testing for the employees as well as for Light and Power and LEAD. So I would think that we would go back to those that had worked with us previously. They were familiar with the facility.
But in due respect, Jim, they did do the testing. The stink was still there. Greg Northrup admitted that they were leaking gas into the air. After he said that they weren't, he actually said that it would be foolish to do that because he'd be losing money. And yet, and then within days that we found out that there were. There's signs on the door that says that there's deadly gas in that building. There's a lot of people seeing them side. There's a lot of parents that were nervous about sending their kids to school. And it was a little bit of a peace of mind. And it was, I think, the cheapest $750 of making people feel comfortable that we've ever spent. So I know it was wrong. I know it's not, basically it wasn't my job to do it, but basically if you read the charter, I guess I should have called it a disaster because the place was a disaster. They had been out of compliance for a year and a half and nothing was ever done about it. That's all in the past now. We are going to do something about it.
I'd just point out for the public's sake too, though,
Yes.
that those signs that indicate that there are gases that would be dangerous is a warning saying that the gases may be present. It doesn't say that they are currently present, nor that there is a current threat. That these are standard signs that are placed to warn employees to be aware of conditions that might be dangerous should they go beyond the tolerances. And when the tests were done previously, we were well within the tolerances that were allowed. In fact, so much so that no protective gear was required at the time that those tests were done in September and November of 15. I guess we can agree that the signs are in place as they need to be, and I would accept your apology for having gone the wrong way on this. And yes, the mayor does have the authority to proclaim a state of emergency. I don't think that necessarily was in play at this particular time, but let's move on and be sure that we follow correct procedures here going forward, and that we know that any of our council members do need to follow these proper procedures. We are not entitled to go out and do our own contracting and have companies do work on behalf of the city without a vote of 3 people, because all you got to do is be able to count to 3. And then also work with staff on making sure that everything's coordinated and that we have proper procedures in place with staff advisement, and there would be better communication as we move forward.
Thank you.
There's a byproduct of biodigesters called hydrogen sulfide. It's very deadly, and Greg Northrup has admitted that that gas is being produced in biodigesters, and from all my research, biodigesters commonly produce hydrogen sulfide. I was concerned. I'm one of the people that had a granddaughter going to the Bushnell school, and it was coming fast, and all the neighbors were asking, and I've been at the meetings, the light and power meetings, where they stood up and they said, is anybody testing the air? What's in the air? I agree, maybe procedure wasn't followed, but I support what the mayor did.
I'd point out that hydrogen sulfide was present when the testing was done the previous November. It was 0.8% of the legal limit, as well as a second test that was 2.6% of the legal limit.
In 1950, did you know what the legal limit for radon was?
Actually, you got me on that one now.
Okay, because we don't know what we don't know.
Well, this is with my OSHA standards, and that's what we have to go on.
Well, I think he made a great effort to protect our citizens. That's what his job is. That's how he interpreted it, and I support him.
That's what all of our jobs are, and
nobody else was doing
I
it.
wouldn't take away from that, but we will disagree on this.
Okay.
We will disagree.
That's fine. I still love you.
Yes, Jeff?
Jeff Zimmerman, 429 High Street. I'd just like to say that on Friday, I spoke with 2 agents from the Chicago office of the US EPA. They had monitoring equipment, were driving around the neighborhood, and found no dangerous levels of any toxins, including hydrogen sulfide. That was free.
I love it. Thank you. That's what we want to hear. We want our citizens safe.
Okay, we, back to the old business, the biodigester. We had an odor, it was emitting an odor then, and they were in violation. What are we gonna do about that? Are we gonna just do nothing? The council, what did we say to the citizens we were gonna do if there was an odor emitted from the biodigester?
I'm surprised Greg Northrop isn't here. That's very concerning, or at least Jay as attorney.
I mean, a little bit of an update, but I thought we were gonna shut it down and they'd have to clean it up and restart it. Wasn't that what we agreed on?
Mayor, I can respond to that if you'd like.
Yeah.
The corrective action agreement that was signed does provide that if in fact after the November 1 date there is an obnoxious odor, that you have the right to provide 7 days notice for them to correct that problem. If they don't correct it within 7 days, it shuts down.
Was that notice sent?
No notice has been sent. You have to direct either the city manager or myself to send that notice.
I'll make a motion to send that notice.
I don't know that you need a motion if you just
Okay.
consensus.
Well, I think they should be on notice that we are very concerned.
What?
And I have not talked to...
Because he had to give us an update. We don't even know what that odor was then.
Exactly, which is one of the issues here. We don't know what that odor was or where it came from, other than it came from the site somewhere, is my understanding.
And everyone knows that when the wind isn't blowing, it's there. You know, it was there Thursday night. It was there Friday, and the people didn't call in because they called in so much that they're getting to the point where they didn't think we were not going to do anything anyways. But I actually told them when they talked to me that they have to call, because if they don't call, there's no record.
I had a lengthy discussion, text discussion with Ryan Mitchell, who's a neighbor that lives near there, and he said that the odor is much better. He's not smelling it now. His concern is that when the heat comes, and you know, we all experienced it with the heat last summer, but right now, at least in his case, he's not dissatisfied with what's happening. I think giving them 7 days to look at it is important, because you just can't, I don't think you can just shut them down. I think you need to give them a chance. And that's the feeling I get from the citizens too.
If that's the consensus of the council,
Well,
I will send a...
Yeah, but when we get a report that there is a smell, we need a system in place where the council doesn't have to send that notice, that authority should be given to the city manager, and that notice should be sent right away, because if it's a Tuesday after a council meeting, it could be 2 weeks before, you know, and then it acts like we don't care.
Well, let me just suggest that is a consensus of the council that the city manager and the city attorney have the authority to determine when to send that notice.
Yes.
And by the way, this just happened over the weekend, so we're not talking about any period of time.
Yeah, right. But what I'm getting at, though, it could, you know what I mean, it could be, and
sure.
And I brought that up, I brought the deal up about if there was a smell and shutting it down, because that's what a lot of people think that we can do. And now you just discussed it in an open meeting and told them that we have to give them 7 days every time they make a smell, so.
I would think that any time that the police would issue a violation, that would precipitate a action upon either part. So I guess maybe we rely on the police to determine the odor and to issue a citation upon which that there is a violation, clearly, and that.
Let me just make one comment on that. The standard for which a violation is issued under the ordinance is different than the standard in our agreement with them. So I would encourage you not to tie the two together, because there may be circumstances where we would give a notice and the police department would not issue a violation. So my suggestion is leave it to our judgment to determine the provisions of our agreement.
Yeah.
If you're good.
All right. But make sure it happens, please.
Thank you. New business.
This is resolution 1916, authorization of sale and issuance of general obligation limited tax capital improvement bonds pursuant to Act 34 of Public Acts of Michigan of 2001. Dick's going to explain.
Thank you. I think other than the mayor and councilmember Hodges, the rest of you probably haven't gone through a bond issuance before. So I'll spend a couple of minutes explaining what this is and what the process is, and then I'm open to any questions that you might have. Based on background information that you already have, you know that there are certain improvements that need to be made to both the sanitary sewer system, the city sanitary sewer system, and the water system. It is intended that the cost of those improvements, bids have been received, as you know, and you've accepted those bids. The cost of those improvements, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of, but not in excess of $3.5 million, will be paid for through the issuance of bonds by the city. Now, that's nothing other than a loan. The city is borrowing money through the issuance of bonds. Someone will purchase, someone or ones will purchase those bonds and provide the funds for those improvements. Those bonds will be for a term of 25 years through the city's underwriter, Robert W. Baird and Company. There will be a marketing of those bonds, a pricing of those bonds, and then an opportunity for the city to accept the interest rates on those bonds, after which the bonds will be closed and funds will be made available for the project. If you look in the packet, you'll see an outline of the timetable that we're talking about with respect to the bonds. And you can go all the way, about a third of the way down to today's date, where it's indicated that the city adopts the bond authorizing resolution, and I'll come back to that in a moment. There will be a rating call tomorrow, I believe. Sue and with a rating agency to get a rating on these bonds, which is necessary in order to sell these bonds. There will be an offering circular that Sue has been working on, which is called here a preliminary official statement, which will be used to sell the bonds. That will be distributed on November 16th according to the schedule. The bonds will be priced the end of the month on November 30th, and a bond purchase agreement will be executed by the city and Baird on December 1st, with a closing on the bond issue and the funds being available on December 15th. And so this process will be completed roughly in the next 5 to 6 weeks. The bond authorizing resolution is the authority under which you can borrow funds, and you indicate you're going to borrow funds. And so if you look at the resolution, which is in your packet, and go to page 2, section 2, bonds authorized, it indicates that the amount that you're authorizing is an amount not to exceed $3.5 million. At the bottom of that resolution is section 4, bond details. that explains or sets forth the parameters of the bonds. The interest rate shall have a net interest rate not exceeding 6%. We do that only for flexibility. That interest rates could be much, much less than that. I would suspect somewhere in the, I'm trying to remember the numbers, 3 to 3.5%, I think, Sue, is what the latest numbers I saw.
Yes.
That the term will have maturities not exceeding 26 years. You get a little overlap, but it's really a 25-year bond issue. And then it talks about a premium, if you allow optional redemption not exceeding 2%, an underwriter's discount, which is the amount that you pay to the underwriter to place these bonds, but not to exceed 1.5 or 1.25%. And then finally in this section, the last sentence authorizes the city manager on your behalf to sign the bond purchase agreement and to agree to the final terms and conditions of the bond issue as long as it's within the parameters that are set forth herein. And then if you flip all the way over to, I won't take you through all of this, but if you flip all the way over to page 12, section 22, it is provided that before the bonds are issued, the city manager, at the top of the page, the city manager or city treasurer shall file a report with the city council reporting the sale of the bonds and all of the details on the bonds. So you will have that information available to you before the bonds are issued. We're required to have a paying agent, which has the role of receiving payments and then paying bondholders. Proposals were taken from Robert W. Baird, and Huntington National Bank was selected as having the lowest proposal. So that's indicated on page 6. And then, as I have already mentioned, on page 11 at the bottom of the page, it indicates that the bonds will be sold through a negotiated sale with Robert W. Baird and Company. And how this works is that when the day is picked, and there's some flexibility as to the day you pick to sell the bonds, depending upon what's happened in the market, Baird will provide the city with comparable sales of similar types of bonds with a similar rating, similar size, similar maturity, so you'll get some sort of an idea how other bonds have sold within the last week or so that are similar to yours. And then with that, they go out and they set the interest rates on the bonds and they take orders on each maturity, and there'll be a maturity for each one of those 25 years. And then if there's an overprescription, if there are more purchasers of those bonds at that interest rate, then there are bonds available for that particular maturity, then they'll knock that interest rate down a little bit because it's oversubscribed. The opposite is true if there are not enough orders in one maturity, in 1 year, then they'll pump it up a little bit until they get enough orders, until they get in a situation where all the bonds have been sold. These kinds of bonds are purchased by funds, primarily tax-exempt funds. The reason why you issue bonds through this process is the interest rate is tax-exempt, so you pay a lower interest rate. And what that means is that the person that lends you, or persons that lend you the money, or funds that lend you the money, don't pay income tax on the interest income, and so they can lend you the money as a city at a lower interest rate. With that, I think, Mike, anything else? And Sue, you had a preliminary call preparing for the rating agencies.
We did today, yes.
And there's some hope that we might be able to get an improvement over our existing rating.
Yeah, that's correct.
What's our existing rating?
A+.
A+. So the next highest would be AA-, right?
Right.
AA-. So we'll cross our fingers and hope we get to, the higher the rating, the better the rating, the lower interest rate. That's the other part of all of this. Questions? Be happy to answer, Mayor and council members, any questions?
We're not timing, we're just going out out there and issuing these bonds, and the funds come in, and we're kind of at the mercy of what the rate is at that time, is that right?
Well, we have some flexibility because we have a date in the schedule, but if that's not a good day to hit the market, our underwriter will tell us, and we can move that date around until there's a better date. And sometimes they're better than others, quite frankly, and we have some flexibility here. Obviously, as you know, you authorized beginning a portion of this project, and so you're going to have to make some payments beginning pretty soon, so you're not real flexible, although you do have some funds in reserve, and you can pay those from reserves and then reimburse those reserves in a worst-case scenario. And what will happen, by the way, is the engineers have allocated cost between water and sewer. So the improvements that are for water will be paid for from the water fund. Those that are for sewer will be paid for the sewer fund. And as we've said, and the engineers have previously said, although I don't like to say this, is that there'll probably be, and there's some information here that gives you some sort of an idea, there'll probably be some increase, modest increase in rates going forward.
I might just point out too that this is not unlimited money, that there is a limit to the amount of bonds that we can put our city into a jeopardy for. Maybe that's the wrong word, but there is a limit to what we can have out as far as obligations and bonds, and we are well within our limit.
Yes, we have comparatively very little debt. I think probably more to confirm that.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the other
compared to other communities, we have very low debt here, which is good.
And this project is gonna put us back in a safe zone because we have a pump station that is old, and it should help with the water infiltration, clearing up some of that. I think Mark is here, and I think it will probably help with some of that too, cleaning that all up down there at the fairgrounds and moving that sewer line. And so.
Jim Salzwell, 505 North Jefferson. I have just
Would
one
you
question.
step up to the podium, please?
Jim Salzwell, 505 North Jefferson. I know you guys are talking 3.5 million over 25 years. What does that whole thing look like when you're said and done? I mean, how much are we actually paying for the $3.5 million loan over the course of the 25 years?
It depends, Jim, on the interest.
I understand that, but just to say it's at 3.5% over the course of the 25 years, just a ballpark figure?
About 4.5.
4.5 million? All right, thank you.
That's with the interest rate.
Yep.
There's no further discussion. I'd make a motion that the City Council approve Resolution 1916, authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation limited tax capital improvement bonds at a cost not to exceed $3.5 million.
I'd second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember DeVore?
Yes.
Councilmember Hodges?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Councilmember T-Lander?
Yes.
And Mayor Altough.
Yes. Board reports, anyone?
Yes. The Look Memorial Committee met last week, Wednesday, and it had one applicant, that being Lowell Arts, had $18,081 at its disposal. Lowell Arts was requesting $10,000. And usually what happens is that we have many different organizations making application, and then we take those in, digest them for a couple of weeks, have a second meeting, and then make grants based on how we've had a chance to think it over. We didn't have a lot of thinking here to do. $10,000, we had $18,000 to disperse. We granted Lowell Arts the $10,000. This will go to support the construction costs of 2 new volunteer stations and to provide furniture, phones, and computers at those volunteer stations at their new quarters at the corner there of Broadway and Main Street. So we look forward to helping Lowell Arts as they continue their Moving to Maine program, and look forward to their great success in their new location. That will leave $8,018 for the spring, and we'll look at doing that. By the way, those applications are due April 28th, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think that's all I have.
I just got a little, the Historic District Commission had a permit application for 204 West Main for signage. It's one of the boutiques down there right next door, and that was approved. That's pretty much it now, and the next meeting will be on the 22nd at 6 o'clock downstairs.
There was a special planning commission meeting, a joint meeting with the townships, and I screwed up. I didn't go, and I apologize. I had a meeting in my phone. It said DDA, and Jerry, my wife, said, "Don't you have a meeting tonight?" I said, "No, I have a DDA meeting, and I don't go to that. The mayor does." I screwed up, so I apologize to the citizens. It won't happen again. I'm having a meeting with Betsy tomorrow to get my phone and calendar and emails working properly. Parks and Rec met, and there was a lengthy discussion on the county fair contract. I'm believing that that contract will change dramatically. Lowell Little League will take care of Richards Park ice rink this year, and I'm very impressed with the Little League and how they work so well together with the high school teams to be able to do events at our ball fields that are pretty crowded. So I'm pretty proud of how Lowell, again, we work together. And that's all I have.
I only had the LIP meeting. I would like to add, though, that with that $10,000 does come the naming right for one of the volunteer stations. And there was canceled for this month.
And I didn't have any meetings. Managers report.
Couple of things. The first thing I would like to address is the Channel 13 news story regarding the Grand Valley Metro Council last week. The Channel 13 watchdog investigator did a story about the lack of attendance from many representatives in the Grand Valley Metro Council pertaining to missing their regularly scheduled board meetings. In that article, there was in this news story, it was also mentioned that Lowell was one of the communities that had a number of meetings missed. I can only attest to the fact that we didn't have a full-time manager for a lengthy period of time before I took my tenure. The Grand Valley Metro Council meetings that I've been going to, for what I found out, were committee meetings. I've been going to those. I knew nothing about these monthly meetings. Matter of fact, when I was watching Channel 13 last Thursday and saw the news story, I knew nothing about it. And so I did contact them to make sure that because I am the representative, and to make sure that they let me know when the meetings are so I can attend. So I don't think that'll be an issue going forward. I do want to congratulate Teresa Munt. She's had a pretty good week, I'll say. Besides the Cubs winning the World Series, she was promoted to deputy clerk. She will begin that position on November 15th. Teresa's been an employee with the city for 13 years, been a very loyal employee, very committed member of the community, and I'm looking forward to her in her new position. November 21st, representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, myself, city staff, we're going to be meeting with the Department of Environmental Quality regarding the showboat. We're going to try and work together towards trying to resolve some issues to fix the showboat and having to address some of the issues with the river as well. And the only other thing I can mention is obviously this Friday is going to be the rematch of the Forest Hill Central Lowell game on Friday night, so it should be a pretty decent game, I would think, and start marching towards Fort Field, which I will not be officiating them, so make that clear.
Thank you. Council comments. Mike?
Election day is tomorrow. Due to poor decision making, I will be forced to wear a Cubs hat to our next council meeting. And that's all I got.
Alan?
Congratulations, Teresa, and remember to vote tomorrow.
Congratulations, Teresa. I'd just like to say I did some traveling down south, and, you know, being up here, coming home, it's just gorgeous, and I was just talking with Jim, and it seems like on Sundays around here, and it was so beautiful, that our community is used for several graduation pictures throughout, and I think that we just have a great place for doing that, and above all, getting these kids in here and seeing them enjoy it. I'm just proud to be from here, and I noticed that quite a bit happening, so.
I just point out that Christmas through Lowell is coming up on November 18, 19, 20 before our next council meeting. And so participate in that. It's certainly a great deal of excitement in our community. And also with the election tomorrow, oh, congratulations, Teresa. Are you working in the election tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha. But with that, yes, so make sure that you get out and vote. And it hasn't been asked yet, but I would say, as we conclude our meeting tonight, if you could stick around for just a moment, help disperse the chairs, bring out some tables. Would you appreciate that?
Very much so.
So that we can get the room set up for the election tomorrow. Thank you.
And I did notice that, oh, congratulations, Teresa. I did notice that the DDA sidewalks are getting repaired. They're doing a pretty good job.
That is correct. There's a couple of issues that we're probably going to come back to the DDA board and talk about. There's some things that might need to be done that are beyond the scope as to what was addressed.
There's also, we should have somebody check into the sprinkler systems for all them businesses that they drove into their yards and rutted them up, because if you don't test them now, you won't know that they're broken, and next spring we'll be on the hook for. Right. And there are some pretty big ruts. They made a little bit of a mistake down there, but they were just trying to get the job done. But
I'll look into it.
Yeah. It is beautiful out. My wife and I took a drive yesterday and went south, and they still have leaves. Our leaves are gone, but coming back, it was beautiful. So, and there was a lot of people in town this weekend for some reason. I don't know what it was, but there was a lot of people in town. And I hope everybody gets out and votes tomorrow, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
That make a motion that we adjourn at, well, I'll make it 7:57.
All in favor?
Yes.